Hello, one and all. It is Talking Football, the Super Bowl edition. Mike, the season has flown by, and it's been a pleasure, as always, to do this with you. But here we are, getting ready to the Super Bowl. Mike, you're making me sick there. Is that the freaking Pacific? I know you're in San Diego. Is that the freaking Pacific Ocean in the back there?
Yes, it is.
Are you kidding us? We still have snow on the ground here, Mike, and you're just throwing it in our face like that.
Hey, can you hear me okay? I'm afraid that the ocean, the waves breaking might interrupt some of the conversation here.
You're awful. You're awful. And then we got used to, for most of the season, seeing that great poster of a Rams huddle with Marshall Faulk's back to us, and now we got to see the Pacific Ocean. So how long are you out there? You're out there for a few more weeks, huh?
Yeah, we'll be here for the month of February. Of course, we have family here and friends and whatnot. So it's a good break for us to get out here and see. We have our son and grandkids out here too. So
yeah. Well, we're all freezing our tushes off here. And actually, Mike, it's supposed to be 65 for Sunday. So take that. Nya.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's going to be 65 here on Sunday, so you got me there.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Mike, you were born in what, South Dakota?
Or South Dakota, yeah.
South Dakota. But what, from the time you're about 8, 9, you lived in California and really spent most of your life growing up in San Diego. And until about 2-3 years ago, you still had a place in San Diego, right?
We did. When I retired, we bought a place here in 2005. And came out occasionally. It needed to be, it was a teardown really, but we rebuilt the thing, put a lot of money in it. And when we retired, we moved here. So, which would have been 2012. And so from 2012 until I guess 22, I guess it was 22. Yeah, to 2022, then we moved back to St. Louis.
Yeah. So, Mikey Martz joining us from sunny Southern California. Mike, we had a really good year picking games, and a lot of times we'd only pick like 6, 7. Some weeks we'd pick 10. So we didn't always pick the easy games. So I'm proud of our record. Again, this is straight up, but you got 68% right over the season of almost 200 games we picked over the course of the year. 66% right. I was like at 69%, just a few games better. Championship week, one of the biggest weeks of the season, we go 0-2. We picked the road teams. We picked a rematch of the Super Bowl of the 91 season, Washington against Buffalo, which was the first Super Bowl I covered of like 26 or 27 Super Bowls for the Post-Dispatch. And Mike, we went 0-2. We whiffed.
Yeah, we did. I think some of it for me was on emotion. I just wanted Buffalo to get in there so bad.
Yeah.
I really liked the coach there. And of course, I think of Josh. He's terrific. And not to say that the others aren't, but it'd be fun to see some different teams in the Super Bowl than have been there recently,
Yeah. And obviously the Chiefs, this is their third year in a row. The Eagles have been there the second out of the last 3 years. And then in 2017, I want to say they won it all. That NFC title game, which was the first of the two games, we spent a good chunk of last week's Talking Football talking about how the takeaway giveaway ratio was still the most important stat and how it had been so dominant in helping determine who had won the playoff games. Well, Washington entering this game, 55-23 loss to the Eagles. They had no turnovers in their first 2 playoff games. They were +6, Mike. So they entered this game. They're -4. All 4 of the turnovers lead to the Eagles' touchdowns, and really the first 3 were the killers. I'll just run them down very briefly and let Mike comment here. The second series, De'Ami Brown fumbled after a reception. Philly recovered on the 40, Washington 48, get a touchdown. That makes it 14-3. 1:44 left in the first half. Jeremy McNichols fumbles on a kickoff return. Philly recovers at the Washington 24. touchdown, 27-12. Then the third one was last minute of the third quarter. Austin Eckler fumbled after a reception. Eagles recovered at the Philly 49 touchdown, and that was really the death knell. That made it 41-23. But they got excellent field position off all these and were able to capitalize. And Mike, you got the feeling, at least I did early on, that the Eagles were going to be tough to stop. But this really gave them the red carpet, all these turnovers to take.
Yeah, and the Eagles aren't probably as good, particularly rushing the passer on defense as they've been past years, but especially Jalen, what's his is it Carter, the defensive tackle?
Right.
He's like Chris Jones, he's that, they're such a good run stopping team and they're so good up front. They don't have all the sacks, but what they do on defense is they take the ball away. And you can see at least two of those where the defender came through and just punched the ball out.
Right.
So they, that's the Peanut Tillman deal, but it's very effective. They've done a great job of doing it all year. It's not a one-game thing. So they're really sound on defense. They play with a great deal of energy. They don't make mistakes defensively, even with young corners. So, they're peaking at the right time, obviously. If you looked at them at the beginning of the season, look at them now, they don't look like the same team at all, particularly in the offensive line. But they're completely different. They play with a different sense of urgency. I think the coordinators now are more familiar. They have on both sides of the ball, they have a good feel of what's expected out of them. They're really hitting their stride just at the right time.
Yeah, and people forget after last year where they had the collapse, I think they were 10-1 or something. Then they lost 6 out of their last 7, something like that. They changed both coordinators, and it did, Mike, as you referenced. It took them a while, it seemed like, under Vic Fangio, veteran defensive coordinator, well-respected, to kind of find their groove. But, boy, they are in that groove now, and they really – I mean, they don't have the pass rush, for example, that they had when they placed Chiefs. What was it? 3 Super Bowls ago,
right?
Or 2 whenever it was.
We had 70 sacks. I think
very solid all 3 levels. Wouldn't you say? Pass rush, linebackers, and those rookie corners have really helped the secondary.
They played exceptionally well. They really have. But 3 years ago, whatever, they had 70 sacks or some dumb thing.
Yeah, 71. Yeah, and they had around 40 something, low 40.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a little bit of a drop off there, but they're just, as 11 guys, they just don't have any holes.
Yeah.
They're playing so well. The linebackers, their fits are beautiful. They just, it's really hard to move the ball against them.
Yeah, and, we talked last week about Jalen Hurts, who basically was limping off the field in the divisional round, how his knee might limit him running. The knee didn't look like a factor. Now, keep in mind, Hurts had 630 yards rushing in the regular season. I think he was second or third best rusher. But they'd really – and he played great, but his legs weren't really a factor. They really didn't rush him. I mean, he had 10 carries for 16 yards in the game, but almost all of them were the tush pushes. So they didn't run him. They took care of his knee, but it didn't seem like it affected him at all.
We got the best back in the league right now. There's no reason for him to do that. The biggest thing that's happened to this team is the evolution of that offensive line again. Beginning of the season, they didn't play real well. They looked a little disjointed, turning guys loose, and right now, they could be as good as anybody in the league in terms of particularly rushing the football. So what they've done is old-time football. They played great defense and ran the ball. Took all the pressure off of Hurts, and it's been a great combination for them. They understand it. They're real patient at running the ball. This will be hard for the Chiefs because a team that can rush the football against a team that likes pressure, that's a bad matchup. Yeah. Now you have to be very careful how you pressure them because ball gets through there, it goes the distance. Yeah.
If you catch him in a blitz, and Barkley, my gosh, first play from scrimmage, wasn't it? He goes 60 yards for a touchdown. If you're the Commanders, it has to be a little bit demoralizing. Mike, that he extended his league record. That was his 7th rushing touchdown of 60 plus, and that's the kind of the. I don't know if you say it's unique, but it's definitely a defining characteristic of Barkley. I mean, he's kind of big and powerful, but man, he gets in the open field. That guy can scoot. He can
Yeah, he's
run.
got terrific speed. The other thing you don't realize, he's got excellent hands. I don't know if you ever watched him catch a ball, but
Uh-huh.
they don't throw the ball a whole lot to him, but he's got terrific hands. I mean, I think this will be the Barkley Bowl. I do. I think he'll take this game over, and they're smart enough to put it in his hands and keep the Chiefs off the field.
Yeah, he finished with 118 yards rushing in the NFC Championship game on just 16 carries, 7.9 yards per carry. The Commanders, they moved the ball pretty good. They didn't get a lot of big chunk plays, but they moved the ball pretty good. I ask you this about most of the teams that get eliminated in the playoffs. So what can we expect from them next year, and what do you think they need?
Well, I think the offensive line didn't play as well as you'd think. Of course, it was against that front from Philadelphia, but the offensive line is really thin. They've had some injuries there too. They're not very good. This quarterback there is done a terrific job of making plays with a lot of pressure, and for a rookie, that's pretty amazing. I think it's the Achilles heel for them is that offensive line. They've got to get that running game going again to take the pressure off them, much the same that Philadelphia did. To me, that's the biggest issue. Defensively, they're not bad. They did not hold up for the first half of the season against the rush, and they've been able to deal with that. But I think bottom line, the first order of business would cheer up that offensive line.
Yeah. A part of me would like to see him get one more, kind of playmaker, easy to say, at wide receiver. Although Brown really came on as the season went along. Maybe he's that guy. And I don't know what free agents they have or whatever, but you have Robinson and Eckler in the backfield. Zach Ertz, a veteran tight end. I really became a McLaurin fan the more I watched him. But maybe if they had one more receiver.
Yeah, he's a good player.
They'd really have anything. And, boy, Daniel sure looks like the real deal, doesn't he? I mean,
Well, he does. And I think when you get somebody like that, you want to make sure you keep him standing. So, I know you can get receivers. They're not hard to come by. But good offensive linemen are very, very difficult to come by, particularly tackles. So I would shore up that offensive line the best way I could to make sure that you can do kind of what Philadelphia is doing, that you can beat a team by rushing the ball as well as throwing the ball.
Yeah. And one thing I thought, Mike, I thought Philadelphia in that game did a really good job of kind of containing Daniels, the runner. Did they spy him? Could you tell, or what was going on?
They did at times. Yeah, they most definitely did with the linebacker. They just hung him in there and played man behind it instead of having a free hitter in there. They used him what we used to call cop coverage and then let him just go. Once he broke out, they just took off and went after him. But they did a good job of pressuring him. And forcing him out there. And he kind of wants to get out there now anyway. He always wants to bail to the right, and he kind of bails too soon. There's times where he should really be stepping up into the pocket, but they got him flustered early in that game, and he just could never really settle in.
Yeah. Overall, though, I thought, there were some moments, like you said, when he got flustered, but he seems just so poised. The moment never seems too big for him.
The thing that got him is, what you go into a game thinking that you've got a nice plan of how you want to mix things in there. Then these things happen. You get these turnovers and you fall behind quickly. And there's things you just have to abandon and lean on the passing game more than what you'd really like to. And if you're not real good in the offensive line, that's going to spell problems. But he's good enough to make it happen anyway.
Yeah. Now, there were so many games in the playoffs where they were lopsided. There were just a handful of close wire-to-wire games, and on that score, the AFC title game, which was a late game Sunday, it didn't disappoint. This was a case where it was billed as a heavyweight fight, and it was the Chiefs and the Bills. What a great series this has been, and great rivalry in recent years. The Chiefs won 32-29. They were 2-point favorites. Back and forth game. The lead changed hands 4 times. It was tied twice. It was fun to watch, Mike, wasn't it?
It was. I just never felt like Buffalo had control of it. They just It's like they were running to catch up the whole time, even when they had the lead. I just always felt like Kansas City was going was in control of everything. And Spags comes on that last play, on that fourth down play with a corner blitz, which they had shown it all, which is a hell of a call. And almost completed it. It was a miraculous throw. I don't know how he got it out of there, but it was almost completed. But it obviously comes down to that one play. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it sure was. Now, I guess you could say it didn't really factor, but one of my pet peeves is that some of these coaches chase the points too early in the game with the 2-point tries. And the Bills, they missed two 2-pointers. They missed down 21-16 at the end of the first half. And then when they were up 22-21 late in the third quarter, it would have been a 1-point game otherwise. I tell you what, Mike, I listened quietly. You went on a little bit of a rant about the calls and the Chiefs, and I just kind of kept quiet. But and I'm not a big conspiracy guy. I sure thought that Josh Allen tush push. I've watched a lot of games over the years, and just by the eye test, I sure thought it was a first down.
I did too, but when I go back and look at these things all through the playoffs and the end of the season, particularly the second half of the season, when you put them all together, in and of itself, none of them are particularly remarkable, but they all happen in the fourth quarter. Games on the line, all of a sudden they get these great calls, and it's pretty hard to ignore. It just is. But whether that's a conspiracy or, I think there's no question. I mean, they're people, officials in that game. They have feelings about stuff, and sometimes that takes over a bit too. I've had that go against me and work for me.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing was the official that had the view of Allen originally was going to spot as a first down.
Yeah, he did.
He got overruled by the official on the other side, and I guess it was later explained the official on the other side, he was closest to the ball, so he gets preference. But the official that ultimately ruled it short, all he could see was Allen's back. He couldn't see, potentially where the ball was. And it was interesting. I think Gene Steratore might have been they always have a officiating analyst for these games. He thought it was a first down. I think Jim Nance was the play-by-play. He thought it was a first. They didn't make a big deal of it. But, Mike, there's so much technology now in the game, and tennis and other sports. They have digitally watched that. Couldn't they just have a little chip in the football and just be able to mark it and say, hey, that's a first down?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. You'd have to put it at both tips of the ball, I guess. But how that would affect throwing the football and how much it weighs and the spin of the ball and all that. And you put lasers in the down marker, that's for sure, But I don't know. It's an interesting question. I think eventually that'll all come to fruition in the league, and I think by and large, too, eventually you'll start to do away with the number of officials on the field that can be done through camera work immediately.
Right.
But who knows? They're trying to make
the other play that stood out there, Mike. It was in the first half. That deep pass, Mahomes to Worthy, the 26-yard gain down to the 3, and they got a touchdown after that to go up 21-10 at halftime. That play was reviewed, I think, on a Buffalo Challenge, and the ruling on the field stood as a pass completion. I don't know what that was. I don't know if it was a completion or the Chiefs player had it. That's the only other play that I wondered about. You're familiar with the play I'm talking about, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't think it was a completion. He didn't have control of it until after he was on his back and the ball did touch the ground.
Right.
I don't know. It looked to me like the defender had it.
Yeah. And then maybe it hit the ground and it moved a little bit, maybe not enough to meet the standards, but those were a couple weird plays, but obviously feeding the conspiracy theories. Otherwise, it was an even Steven game. The Buffalo had a slight edge in both time of possession and total yards. And interestingly, I guess it was a botched Mahomes handoff. That was the only turnover. So this was the first game in the playoffs where the team that was minus in takeaway giveaways actually won. But it was just -1. The Chiefs were -1. Boy, they know how to close out these close games, don't they, Mike? One way or the other.
Well, they had some great calls in the fourth quarter to end that thing, to get first downs. They're just not afraid. You throw the ball on third down, you're trying to run the clock out and you complete it, it's awesome. If it's incomplete, then you're a fool, and they don't worry about that stuff. They just do what they think is the right thing to do, and that's why they're who they are. I mean, the thing people maybe they realize, if you've ever met Andy Reid, there's just not a nicer person in the world than Andy Reid. If you want to pull for somebody, if you want him to win, he's the guy that you want to pull for. I mean, he's such a nice person, and he is. His words to me after we beat him in the NFC Championship is, "Go win one for the NFC," and just magnanimous, and just you really like this. I'm glad it's him that's having the success, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And the rap against him for so many years, well, he just can't win the big one, the Super Bowl. Well, now he's got what, three rings, going for a fourth. So they can't say that anymore. He is a great guy. You're talking about that NFC Championship game. You're talking about when he was with Philadelphia and you beat them in the 2001 championship game at the Dome. That was a championship game, right? You played Green Bay the week before, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we opened up with them that season in Philadelphia. Then we ended up playing them in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, and the opener in Philly, that was a overtime game, wasn't it? Am I right?
It was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. That was they were a very good team. Yeah, I've not that we're best friends or anything close to it, but way back in the late 80s, when I covered Mizzou, Andy Reid was the tight ends coach and assistant offensive line coach, and I got to know him a little bit. And you're right, just a super guy, Mike, super guy.
Yeah, he really is.
Well, the only other thing kind of that stood out with the Chiefs is, Mahomes, for a lot of the game, he got the ball out quick, and I think that helped their passing game. He just got rid of it.
There's no question, dude. I think, he's playing. He always plays his best in the clutch. He just does. He plays kind of in and out during the season, just good enough to win. Then he gets down this stretch in these big games, and he's, in the playoffs, has been miraculous. And again, he was perfect in that game. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong other than the fumbled handoff. And I'd do away with that stuff, that zone read garbage or whatever it is. They don't need to do that stuff. They're too good. They don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. Why would risk all that? You're good at what you do anyway, so why would you fool with that? But I think that's what concerns you when you play them. You can have control of the game, and in the end, with 4 or 5 minutes, they could be down 10 points, and all of a sudden you lose the game. It's just who he is.
Yeah. If you're watching live, and we are live now on YouTube and the Claibs Online network, yes, that is the ocean behind Mike Martz. He's not at St. Albans. That isn't a creek running by behind him in West St. Louis County. He's in San Diego. We're talking football. We're going to be back with our last Ask Mike segment of the season after these messages.
Let me get this straight. Graybar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Graybar is much more than a distributor?
Yep, you could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Graybar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Graybar does that.
We are back, and we want to thank everyone for sending in their Ask Mike questions this year. As always, they're always all over the map. Some are about strategy, some are about current teams or players. We get a lot of questions. People still remember very precise details of the greatest show on turf and Mike's time there helping to make magic in St. Louis. And we've got a few questions. JG, letter J, letter G, from Cape Girardeau, Jackson area, south of St. Louis, says he's a longtime fan of you, Mike. And so thank you, JG. He has 3 questions, and we're just going to let him roll. His first question: losing stings, But does it sting more to lose like Washington getting blown out or to lose a close one like Buffalo did?
The close ones are really hard because there's certainly games that you could have won just within a play or so, Getting blown out in the game, getting dominated by somebody, obviously they're better. It's just the way it went. You gave it your best shot, but losing a game like that in the last play of the game, that's really difficult to deal with. It just never goes away.
Another question from JG from the Cape Girardeau Jackson area. He asks, are you bored with the tush push, or is it just JG that feels this way?
The only team that really does it anymore is Philadelphia. They have a unique way of doing it. I think that you have to practice against it. You have to have a plan for it. You can't just line up and play regular defense. The offensive line gets underneath the defensive line somehow, some way. The only way to stop that thing is to get underneath it with your defensive line, go over the top with your linebackers, and hit the quarterback in the head. It's the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
But I think eventually it'll go away when Philadelphia stops it. And actually, they got stopped once on that too. So,
yeah,
I don't think it's something that's going to be around much. You're just really at risk of losing your quarterback. I've lost a couple quarterbacks with concussions doing that. And I know they did that. What are they talking about? I think Mahomes did, and they just won't do that with him anymore either. So,
yeah, Buffalo does a little with Josh Allen, certainly not with his success. I think it helps a little bit of freaking nature with the quarterback. Hurts, like he squats like 500 something pounds, so he's got that lower body strength. Not many quarterbacks are capable of doing that.
Yeah, he can move the pile himself. He doesn't need help. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
How about the one sequence where they were called?
For
encroachment, like 3-4 times. Finally, the referee said, "If you do it again, we have the discretion to just award the touchdown." Had you ever heard of that rule that they could do that?
No, that was a new one. I didn't realize you could do that. They're trying to send a message to him. That backer going over the pile like that. Yeah, and that's what you have to do to stop that. You got to get underneath him and then hit the helmet, hit the quarterback helmet to helmet, knock him out. It's the only way to stop it.
And I guess the thinking on defense is, okay, if we're penalized, we're gonna lose like this much. It's just we're not going to lose much yardage. That was a little strange. Last thing from JG from Cape Girardeau Jackson. JG, we thank you for your input. He wants to know, and this is a very interesting question, I thought, what would a Mike Martz offense look like with a super mobile quarterback like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen?
It's a good question. What are the other parts? It would be my first question is how good are you in the offensive line and who's the back and who are the receivers? Because that all would determine what you're going to do with that quarterback. So if you have a great back, obviously be a lot of play action and get the quarterback out on the edge and let him run at times. If you don't have that running game, then hopefully you got a group of receivers, that you can get away from the running game and win throwing the football. So it kind of depends on who's around him, but you want to be able to put him in a position to make plays with his legs as well.
Man, I'm just thinking of the greatest show teams. If you had a Kurt Warner who could run, I mean, with Falk, with all the receivers, that would have been, well, it was almost unstoppable the way it was. That would have just been something crazy. Would you, with everything else that you have with that offense, would you have been a little more hesitant to maybe call design runs with, say, if there was a mobile?
Depends on the number two is, because you do that, there's a real good chance you're going to be using your number two here pretty quick. So
your number two quarterback, yeah.
I think you have to be really careful with that. When they're young, their first couple of years in the league, and they got their legs, it's great, but they don't do that much with Lamar anymore either. He's a good enough passer, so they'll have opportunities enough in the passing game to pull it down and take off, without having to worry about creating some of those runs. I suppose you could. There are a couple of runs I would have liked to use with a quarterback, but you get into empty backs and move the tight end off the line of scrimmage and pull him with the guard, and you can run power football with the quarterback, which is really cool. But
yeah.
You take your chance to do that.
It's amazing, though. It seems like, is it just me? Maybe most of the starting quarterbacks have at least some mobility, which wasn't always the case back in the day where you just had pure pocket passers. I mean, I don't know if they're developing them more in college or how that's come about, but seems like
Well, I
more
think,
and more quarterbacks.
yeah, I think there are more athletic, I guess, if you want to say that. But I do think that there are a lot of athletic quarterbacks that could run that didn't in the old days. When I say old days, 20, 30 years ago,
Right.
Steve Young was magnificent,
Yeah.
Joe Namath, when he got in before hurt his knee, he was a terrific threat to run
Before the knee injury.
Yeah, and people don't realize that. So Rodgers, when he first came out, when he was playing at Green Bay,
Oh, yeah.
you couldn't contain him. He was devastating out in the perimeter with the ball.
Yeah. Okay, our last question comes from our old favorite, Marissa from DC. She wants to know, since you retired and watched Super Bowls, do you watch the halftime shows?
I don't. I don't. I just I don't know. I've never watched them, obviously, because when you're playing at them too. But it's just too glitzy and gaudy. It's just not football to me.
What do you go get a snack now, or you go to the restroom, or what do you stretch your
Find
legs?
something else going on. Yeah, I just unless there's a band out there or something, God bless America football.
Yeah.
But some of these shows are just the extravaganza, and half of them I've never heard of them. So
yeah, well,
Paul
the older I
McCartney's on
get,
there or
the
something,
less I've heard of some of these acts. Her other question is, once the NFL season's over, do you watch any other sports on TV?
I love to watch, and I know it sounds crazy, but I love to watch the Masters.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I do. And I love to watch golf on the weekends. I really enjoy it. I like the college playoffs in basketball. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Uh-huh.
And then watch NBA finals. That's about it.
You watch UFL, though? You watch some of the spring football?
No.
No? You not?
No.
You were at what, one or two of the games?
I've been at a couple games there. I announced one last year, and then I think the year before I was on the field.
Yeah. And you said you generally you kind of, if I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of like the quality of play. Not that it was the NFL, but
I was surprised. Yeah, in a real pleasant way. It's good football. It really is. And there's enough talent there that each year they'll pluck a few guys out of there, into the NFL. The NFL really needs a feeder system of some sort, especially the way things are going in college football now. There are enough players that get overlooked that don't get an opportunity, or their window closes real fast on them. They don't have a good workout, or they have a bad camp, but they're still good enough. And having that opportunity to grow and get better is a little bit like the junior college system of yesteryear for college to get into college. You just weren't ready, and
right.
Who knows? I just think they could use that. Really do. It helped us. I know we had a number of starters on our team that played in Europe. Kurt was one of them.
Kurt Warner and Tommy Newton among them.
Tommy Newton, our left guard.
Yeah. Coaching carousel, Michael. Everything's taken except for New Orleans. We got Mike Vrabel at New England, the two former Detroit coordinators, Ben Johnson in Chicago, Aaron Glenn with the New York Jets, Brian Schottenheimer, Dallas offensive coordinator, got promoted to head coach. We talked about that last week. That kind of surprised us, and I know Brian a little bit from his time in St. Louis like him. That really doesn't seem like one that's going to inspire much excitement in Dallas, but you never know. The idea is to win the game, not the press conference. Raiders hired Pete Carroll, who's only like 4 years younger than you, Mike. Did that surprise you a little bit, Pete Carroll getting back into coaching?
I know Pete had bone to pick. He wanted to coach again in the worst way, and he was just looking for that opportunity. So I know he was really trying to get back in it. So that part doesn't surprise me. The fact that they hired him does.
And then Jacksonville, I guess the real kind of the quote unquote no name of the group, Liam Cohen, Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator, a former assistant under Sean McVay with the LA Rams, was hired by Jacksonville. You know much about him? About Liam
No,
Cohen?
I don't, but I know a lot about what they did offensively, and was very impressive.
Mhm.
I think he had a great feel for that quarterback and the offense, and I thought he did a terrific job down there. I get why they would hire him.
Any one of these you like the most of all of these hires? These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hires: Vrabel,
I think
Johnson,
both the
Glenn.
coordinators from Detroit are really good picks. What I think of Ben Johnson. I think he's a once in a lifetime guy. I think he gets it. He's got everything you're looking for in a young coach to become a head coach. So, and Aaron Glenn, he's due to have a head job. I think he's got a chance of being really good as well.
So I guess we can assume by New Orleans they're waiting on somebody out of the Super Bowl teams, huh?
Yeah, the coordinator at Philadelphia seems to be the guy that they're waiting on.
Kellen Moore, is it?
Kellen Moore, yeah. Kellen, I think, has that job. I think it's probably everybody else has dropped out, said they're not interested. The other interviewees, and they haven't interviewed anybody else. So everybody that they've interviewed have said, I'm no longer interested, which means they know that he's got the job. So I'm sure he'll be announced when the Super Bowl's over with.
Yeah, I think McCarthy and Cliff Kingsbury fall into that category of dropping off. Okay, we're going to take another break. We're going to come back. We're going to preview Super Bowl 59, and we're also going to take a trip down memory lane today as we record this edition of this final edition of the season of Talking Football. Is the 25th anniversary of Super Bowl 34. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
We are back, Mike. Super Bowl 34 was this date 25 years ago. What are some of your maybe favorite memories of that game, or at least ones that stick out, even beyond the tackle and the touchdown called to Isaac?
I think the week's preparation, we only had 1 week to prepare. So the football staff, the coaches, we flew down on Tuesday night late after we got our game plans all done, or the practice plans anyway. And then when we got there, Wednesdays and Thursdays practices were just great practices.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we were sharp. And I just felt so good about it. The thing that I didn't like is we didn't have a chance to practice our red zone. When we did it in the stadium, which everybody could see and film if they wanted. So, and of course, we had a hard time in the red zone. You got to wonder what happened, But anyway, the practice and the preparation went by so fast, but it was electric. There's just such a great feel. The short time that we were there with the players and getting ready to play that game. And Dick came in our last meeting before the game. He wanted to meet with the offensive staff, which he had never done all year long. I was trying to figure out what
night before the game.
Night before the game, yeah. And he came in and he had a list of 25 things that he wanted to make sure that we covered, and he was angry. I'd never seen Dick angry before. He came in and he was, listen, we're not going to lose this game, blah, 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 blah. We got these 25 things that I want to make sure that are covered now, like we don't do those things. And he got about 5 into them. I said, Dick, do you mind if I look at that? I looked at the page. I said, Dick, we do this every week. We cover all 25 of these things every single week. And certainly the Super Bowl has not been any different. You've trusted us all year long. You got to trust us now. We're ready to play. I promise you we're ready to play. And he just took a deep sigh. He paused for a minute. He said, okay, you got me left. I saw he was so freaked out because they'd lost. They'd lost one. He
had lost with the Eagles to the Raiders. Yeah,
right. He lost to the Raiders, so he wasn't going to lose this, and he just panicked. He came in there, and I'd never seen him like that before. And then we just tried to reassure him, and then fortunately Al was in there, Saunders, and the other guys. Yeah, Coach, we're ready to go. We got this.
We got
all those things. Hey, did you do this? Did you do that? Whoa, we do that every week, Coach. Come on. So.
Yeah. I guess he was just doing his due diligence. I thought very interesting. I'd forgotten this until you reminded me. So the coaches flew down before the team just because of the short week, just to get all established.
No, the team went down Monday.
The team went down Monday. Okay. It was just the opposite, but still, you didn't fly down with the team. So very unusual.
No, the Dick and the team went down Monday, and we spent Monday and Tuesday in the offices up there with nobody around, which is really cool.
At Rams Park.
The whole time just working on the game plan,
And people forget the pre-bye week, and then 2 years later, with you as head coach, Super Bowl 36, again, no bye week, but that was because of 9/11, the 9/11 tragedy. Remember, no games were played that week, and they were pushed to the end. The one was it Atlanta?
Bump everything back, yeah.
And the opponent pushed to the end, and so you had to go right down there. That's gotta be hell trying to do all that in 1 week. They don't do it anymore. I mean, just to get a game plan, all the tickets, just the logistics you got to go through.
Well, it was hard because as the offensive coordinator too, I had to do the game plan. I had to go down on Monday. So it was difficult.
For New England? Oh, as a head coach. Yeah.
So I had to go down there and do what Dick did. And then I also have to game plan without the coaches.
Yeah.
So they all came down Tuesday night. So it was really, really disorganized in my mind because I was trying to do two things at the same time. Right. Everybody wants to interviews because it's a Super Bowl, but it's only 1 week. Yet I've got to do the game plan for the passing game and stuff and get all that done. There's no time. Yeah. I slept in the office.
What was the feeling after 34 to know how far that team had come, worse to first, and that you were Super Bowl champs? I mean, could you believe it, or were you just caught in the moment, or what was that like?
I was I was just numb from it. It was exciting. It's just such a great relief. But, Jim, my neck hurt so bad for 5 or 6
that's right, because you got surgery almost immediately after that season.
I had exploded 2 discs in my neck. They were herniated, and they were bad herniations, and I'd lost sensation. My shoulder hurt, all that stuff where that nerve goes. And I just, there's no time to get it done during the season. You can't do it. So
yeah,
I had to wait till the season's over with. And he was really concerned. He said, you're in the car and you go over a bump, that might be it, So I was nervous about it. And as soon as the game was over with, I went and showered and laid down on the taping tables in the locker room there while everybody celebrated. I was just trying to get relief, So
yeah. For those not familiar, Mike, really dating back to your high school days is when your neck and back issues started, right? You just had some horrific collision, so it has bothered him. And you, I believe this memory serves me correct, you were on the phone setting up the surgery. This is right after the Super Bowl. You're back at Rams Park, I think, when Dick Vermeil comes in and says, "Hey, I'm retiring." Is that correct?
It was Tuesday morning. It was 9:00 straight up. Dick came in my office and closed the door and sat down and, talked about the season and the Super Bowl. And it was getting teared up. And they says, I'm stepping down. I said, "What do you mean you're stepping down?" I did. There's no way I didn't see it coming. Didn't believe that was going to happen. I felt like maybe in another year or two he might, but yeah, I'm stepping down. And he was in there for 3 hours. He left there at noon, and I tried to talk him out of it. And I was scheduled for the next day. And that's when his press conference was, the next day. So he left, and John Shaw came down and mentioned that, okay, this is all going to happen. Dick's stepping down, and we're going to announce you, but we're not going to announce you till Monday, I think it was.
Right.
And now I got to postpone the surgery another week. And I thought to myself, come on, you can't do this to me, Or maybe it was maybe I did the next, I can't remember. But it was about 4 or 5 days after he resigned.
Now, if I recall correctly, and it was 25 years ago, I believe it was you had the playoff bye before you opened against Minnesota, and that's when they announced that you had become the head coach in waiting.
Right.
What was that like for you? And what kind of sense did you have of how teams were looking at you? The team had such great success. If I recall correctly, Green Bay and New England were both interested in interviewing you for the head coach. What was that all about, that whole experience?
I don't think Green Bay was, but Dallas most definitely was.
Dallas? Okay.
And both Dallas and New England, it basically through independent means, had reached out to me and said, hey, just don't do anything with the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we want to talk to you when the season's over, right? So, and Dallas was very, 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 very aggressive about it.
Okay.
You know, without getting into, I mean, it's like fourth party, you know, not tampering, I guess, but anyway, and they'd been so good to me. And the team was intact. And I didn't think Dick was going anywhere. I was happy doing what I was doing. I was not anxious to become a head coach. I loved what I was doing, loved the staff and the players that we had. I just, you know, I hadn't really thought much of it. They started talking to me about that during the middle of the season. And
really? That early, huh?
Yeah. And I went and told Dick, and Dick said, yeah, they're doing that because I've asked them to do that. And I said, okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that he was aware of what was going on, right? So,
okay.
You know, and as time went by, it became a distraction, especially going into the playoffs against Minnesota.
Well, by that time, there was a lot of talk or speculation about it, rumors about it. So, yeah, I can see.
And so,
that.
You know, I just told my agent, Frank Bauer at the time, come on out, talk to him, and see. He couldn't get anything done for 2 weeks. And it wasn't money. Money was never the issue. It was all about, if I was going to be a head coach, I did not want somebody telling me who the players were going to be all the time, right? So I wanted the first right of refusal. Not that I wanted to select the players. I just did not want them to draft somebody or sign a free agent that I just didn't want, that didn't fit what we were doing or whatever, right? So
right.
I'd seen that happen before. I just wanted to be able to have a voice in the personnel. I didn't want to run it. I just wanted to have a voice in it. So they gave me basically the authority of the general manager. And they asked me if I wanted the title. I said, I do not want the general manager. I don't want anybody to know that I have this in my contract. You know,
right.
Just
right.
Let it go, you know.
And that was that. Mike, boy, it happened fast. I mentioned, I think before on the show when you were wide receivers coach, I first saw you. You had those little, I think they were wire rim glasses. You looked very bookish. You looked like a history professor from a small college. You were kind of quiet. And now all of a sudden you're out there front and center, and man, you become a head coach. You got to do a lot of talking, answer a lot of questions to the media. It's a different ball game, isn't it?
It is. You know, I'll tell you what they thought of me, though, is when they announced after the Minnesota game that I was the next head coach in waiting, they gave me a script to read, which was really embarrassing. So I said, oh, the heck, I'll read it. They didn't think I could speak. You know what I mean? They didn't think I could do a public speaking
You
thing.
hardly been interviewed, even that year,
No.
not a whole lot.
No, I didn't think that was my role. I avoided all interviews, right? So when they announced me, though, they gave me like a 10-page script to read. Can you imagine standing in front of the podium and reading from a piece of paper?
No, not 10 pages worth.
I mean, can you imagine that? Oh, maybe it was 5 pages, but it was a lot of.
Well, not any more than a page or two.
No, it was, you know, and they said, here, memorize this. Rick Smith gave it to me. He wrote it.
Former PR guy, legendary Rick Smith.
For John Shaw. I mean, they obviously didn't think I could stand in front of a camera and speak.
Yeah.
Which pissed me off. So I took it, threw it in the trash, and did my.
I think you did all right. I remember when you were head coach, writers from out of town, because you were great to deal with, but you didn't suffer fools. If you asked a stupid question, sometimes you'd come back as a reporter, but some reporters would from out of town would say, well, God, how do you cover that guy? I said, are you kidding me? He's great copy. You never know what Mike is going to say, because you usually, whatever was on your mind, you told us about it. You weren't too nefarious, I guess you say. You were pretty transparent.
Well, I just had always believed that I just never wanted to lie or cover anything up. I wanted to be as accurate and as honest as I could be. then you have no regrets about anything, even to the point of Monday telling everybody what our injuries are. I didn't care about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and if somebody asks a decent question, I try to explain it the best I could,
Right. Right. We could go on about this forever. And Mike and I are really, once the seasons are really going to get going on a book, which we've started. Third and Long is the working title, Mike, and it's Mike's life story, and he's got an incredible story. So hopefully by this time next year, we'll have a book to talk about. But hey, there is a Super Bowl coming up a week from this Sunday. It's a great matchup, Mike. Chiefs 17-2 overall versus Eagles 17-3 in New Orleans. Fox, 5:30 p.m. Sunday, February 9th. Chiefs are 1.5 favorite. We know both defenses are very sound. Philly more productive on offense, and Mike, you hit on it in our opening segment talking about the conference championship games. Can the Chiefs stop Barkley? I mean, he has over 2,400 yards rushing, counting regular season and playoffs, and he's just 30 yards away from breaking Terrell Davis's all-time record for total rushing yards in a season, regular season, and playoffs. Can they stop him, Mike? Can they stop Saquon, or at least control him?
At times they will, but ultimately no. It's just like Detroit comes in there and beats them, and the team that can rush the football against that defense, that's how you hurt that defense. All the super duper blitzes that he comes with, those will end up biting him in the rear end against a team that's willing to stand in there and pound it, because it's gap responsibilities, and you get one guy out of position on defense, the ball goes the distance. So I think this is a bad matchup for Kansas City. This would be very difficult for the defense. And if they do, then they've got these two big old receivers that they ought to be able to get free, because the one thing he's excellent at is against man-to-man throwing the ball. I'm talking about Hurts. In the zone stuff, he kind of wants to hang on to it a bit, but the one thing that's hurt them in the past, I'm talking about Philadelphia on offense, are blitzes. They've not been real accountable in terms of blitz pickup a year ago, but that's before Kellen Moore. So, I kind of would give that. I'm going to give it to Philadelphia for no other reason than because I think they'll play great defense and rush the football well.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts, he had thrown in their first two playoff games a combined 259 yards passing combined. So basically not even 130 every game. The championship game, he 20 out of 28, threw a touchdown, had 246 yards in that one game, and he joked afterwards, well, they kind of took the shackles off me, let me throw the ball a little bit. So he did show he could throw it downfield. So the Chiefs, you're saying are they predominantly a man-to-man team, or do they?
No, they're a zone dog team, but in order to stop the run, they may have to play some man. We're going to have to play a 5-down look to stop them. Most teams against a running team play kind of an adjusted form of the Bear defense. The guards in the center are all three covered, plus the tackles have guys on their outside. So I would think that they're going to be in that 5-down look. It's what New England did to the Rams in the first Super Bowl out there in L.A. that shut them down so well. I would think that those are the kinds of things that they'll see, which would put them in more man-to-man possibly. It's hard to say. The biggest issue with Kansas City is, what's their firepower? How are they going to run the football? And that's not a team that they're going to run the ball well against. Philadelphia is terrific against the run. They have been in the second half of the season. They've done a great job. Yeah. So that puts a lot of pressure on the passing game, and they're not rushing the passer real well. So, it's kind of a balancing act. It'll probably come down to the last series, just like it did last week.
Yeah. And, although they've done a little better these last few weeks, the Chiefs offensively, by the numbers, they're just kind of a middle-of-the-pack a team. Now, you've got Hollywood Brown now is integrated into the passing game, at least to some degree. Xavier Worthy looks like he's been a little more prominent, able to do more things with him. But their running game is not really much to it all year, and they've had different people. Pacheco's back, Kareem Hunt, but I guess the one thing also, I mentioned in the NFC title game how they did a lot of quick throws. Mahomes seemed like he used his legs more in that game, and I think the announcers, I don't know if this is true, they were making a big thing out of my gosh, that was a designed run by Andy Reid, one particular play where he actually designed run. I guess you still have to keep an eye on that with Mahomes. His ability.
Well, they're doing that because neither one of the tackles are very good. They're weak at offensive tackle. And
to me, that's their Achilles heel of the entire Chiefs, of those two tackles.
It is, and I got to tell you, Buffalo is not very good on defense up front. They've been pushed around all year. Milano came back, he helped, but that's a big adjustment for them in the offseason. Go get some defensive linemen that can rush a passer. So, this is not the Buffalo defensive front now by any stretch. This will be hard for Kansas City, really hard. And they're an average offense. He makes them, his ability is everything to that football team. If he goes down, it's a no-brainer. They don't have anything.
Right.
So
Yeah. And KC is doing better. I mean, they're 32 points in the AFC title game. That was their season high. And also, boy, you just got to have the feeling. And I know this is where we're getting to the refereeing and whatnot. If it's a close game, I mean, the Chiefs have so much confidence, Mike, in close games. This year, 12-0 in one-score games this year. So, and you got a feeling that this is going to be a close game. It's going to come right down to the end.
Unless the Chiefs turn the ball over a lot, which I don't think they will. But this is a team now that they are better than anybody in the league at taking the ball away, punching it out, and doing all that kind of stuff. So, you'd like to see the first three-peat in history of the league. I'm going to go with Philadelphia. I just think at this point they've got too much firepower on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. And you look at the Eagles, and I don't see any one particular offense, defense, even special teams. I don't see a glaring weakness. They're pretty well-rounded, aren't they? About as well-rounded as any team. Maybe that's why they're in the Super Bowl. Yeah,
both defensive fronts are solid. The offensive line is playing their best football. They're playing their best football at the right time. Like I said, you take the last few games that they played and look at their first few games of the season, and they're not the same team. They've taken the biggest leap of anybody in the league, I think, throughout the season.
Yeah. They're just the Chiefs. Meanwhile, they're just the fourth team to play in at least 3 Super Bowls. I had to look this up. I remember Buffalo because that was when I was first covering the league. 4 straight Super Bowls. They lost them all in the early 90s. And then more recently, the Patriots played in 3 in a row. I think they lost the middle game of those 3. The last of the 3 was that Super Bowl you were referencing against the Rams, where they shut out the Rams 19-0 and shut down their running game. And then the other one is the one that surprised me, but the early 70s, the Miami Dolphins of Greasy and Kick and Zonka, they went to 3 in a row. I think they lost the first one there and won the next 2. So we could see history here. I think a lot of people think the league, if you put the truth serum in them, so to speak, would love for them to win 3 in a row. So I don't know if the Eagles have that to overcome it as well. But I'm really looking forward to this game. I'm sure you are too, Mike.
I am. Yeah, this will be a great matchup for 2 great teams. Usually you have pretty strong feelings on which team has the best chance of winning, but not in this one. It's a coin toss, really. But I think because of their ability to rush the football so well, and those 2 big receivers, they haven't had the ball thrown to them much at all. I think that could come alive. They have a great answer for that defense on offense.
Well, against my better judgment and risking the ire of my wife, Paula, who's become a big Chiefs fan, I'm going to go with the Eagles too. And I bet I picked against the Chiefs maybe 7 times this year, and the only one I got, and we both got, was when they beat Buffalo during the regular season. But I agree with you. Just for one, the Eagles are so well-rounded, and they have that running game, combination of a hammer and a speed guy in Barkley. So we'll see what happens. We're going to wrap it up here for Talking Football. Mike, it's been a blast. We've done this for 2 years. Don't know if we'll be back. Hopefully we'll be back in some way, shape, or form. You know, Mike, I get so much feedback. People who enjoy the show, they love your commentary, your insight, and really your honesty. And, I think we've developed quite a following without really a lot of promotion for the show, but it's been a lot of fun.
You've enjoyed it,
And,
Jim. Appreciate everything.
And I want to thank Joe Roderick for all his time and efforts and input in producing the show all year. And also Mike Claiborne, a good friend, a great sports journalist for the Claves Online for getting that umbrella of support. And thanks for all the questions, all the Ask Mike questions. It'll be a great Super Bowl. And thank you all once again. And we'll see what happens Super Bowl Sunday.